The RCWR show with Lee Sanders is proudly sponsored in part by Audible.com. Sign up for your free trial today at audibletrial.com/the RCWR show to get one free audiobook and a 1-month trial of the service. Audibletrial.com/the RCWR show.
Enjoy all episodes of the RCWR show on Blog Talk Radio, iTunes, Stitcher, Tunein Radio, Spreaker, and iHeartRadio.
Covering the latest in entertainment and beyond since 2011. You're listening to the RCWR show. And now your host, as featured on Wrestling Inc. and TNA Insider, Lee Sanders.
What is up, boys and girls? It's your pal right here, Black Avenger, a.k.a. the Black House Rail, Lee Sanders, coming at you with another album review. I can't believe that for like the first time in history, since we've been doing our album reviews, I've been like on a roll this week. Not one, but with this one, 2 albums in 1 week from like my favorite bands of all time, my favorite artists of all time. This week, we're talking about U2's 13th studio album, Songs of Innocence. You talk about the huge gap between albums for U2. Last one that had came out was in 2008, No Line on the Horizon. I thought that was a very beautifully done album. I thought it was kind of similar to 1997's Pop, which I thought was a really for U2 albums, I thought that was like one of the most underrated albums that U2 had put out. It was a very dark album mixed in with a little bit of techno and all that. I thought they really did a good job in utilizing the techno, but I thought No Line on the Horizon was a really good album. Unfortunately, commercially, it wasn't a success. Apparently for the truest, and I consider myself to be a truest U2 fan, but I guess you just had that core base of U2 fans that really just kind of had a hard time gravitating towards that No Line on the Horizon album, and it basically had forced U2 to go back to the drawing board and figure out, okay, well, what exactly are we as a band about? What do we want to do with this next album? What do we want to talk about? What made us come together as a band? What were some of the life struggles, experiences that we had came across to get us to where we are right now? They kind of went with that whole concept into making the Songs of Innocence album. And I just want to say off the break, because it is tied to this album, I think that we have a lot of people that really shouldn't be upset at the fact that they aren't going to be able to get a hold of this album unless they've subscribed and signed up for iTunes, as this is pretty much the only way you can get the album right now, unless you have a very cool friend that doesn't mind burning you a CD and you can just check it out that way. But honestly, I thought it was a very cool concept that they did with regards to releasing it through iTunes. I'll actually talk a little bit more about that after the overall review. But let's talk about this album. Now, if you guys want detailed track-by-track information as far as the meaning of each song, I'm going to put a link in this episode description for you guys to check out. It's going to be through Rolling Stone, where Bono goes over each track one by one, okay? But as you listen to this album, just try to come up with your own ideas on what you think that track might be about. It's a good little challenge, I always say, but I think it's going to be pretty easy, especially if you're a longtime U2 fan. You should be able to catch on with regards to what each track is about. Now, Bono and the gang, they will have you believe, because they've said it publicly in interviews, that this was not a concept album. But as you're listening to it, that's exactly how it feels, as really each track is very unique in its own. They do bring the personal experiences, them growing up in Ireland and talking about the first time that they had came over to the U.S. One of the times was when they had visited California. And there's a lot of experiences that they go through on each track. And I'm actually looking at the track listing right now for you guys through my iTunes library here. And I love how things had opened up with the miracle of Jimmy Ramone. Those of you that are Ramones fans, it's obvious that they're paying homage to the Ramones on this track. Basically they're talking about what it was for them the first time that they saw the Ramones, and it's a very nice, welcoming opening track. I feel it really does a really great job, I feel, in capturing what the entire journey of this album is going to be about. Again, the life experiences, everything that they've gone through, whether it be individually or as a band, just what all they've gone through over the years. Every Breaking Wave, this one really, really loved right here. This was a pretty damn good track. Now, this one apparently was a abandoned follow-up track slated to be on the Songs of Ascent album. I'm sure you guys had heard about that for a lot of years. If I'm not mistaken, that was supposed to be produced by Rick Rubin, if I'm not mistaken. Then again, I might have my album mixed out because that might have been No Line on the Horizon. But I know there was some material that U2 has been doing over the years, some work that they did with Rick Rubin, and then there's like a lot of material from that going into material that should have been on a follow-up album to No Line on the Horizon, as they were trying to do a follow-up to that titled Songs of Ascent. It really just did not happen, and it's been leaving fans as each moment of time goes by, year after year. It just has fans wanting more. U2, they want to know a little bit more about this album that, it never came to be. Heard apparently different versions of this track over the years. They've really done a great job in stripping it down, the choruses, tinkering with the verses a little bit. And it kind of tackles adult concerns such as long-time relationships, distractions, struggles. Great little track right there. California, that one we had already talked about, as it's the band's experience in going to California for the first time in the 80s. It's a pretty damn good track right there. My personal favorite right here, Song for Someone. I thought this one was a very nice, tender ballad. And as you're going through each of these tracks, it really feels as though U2 said to themselves, you know what? We had all these other great bands that in some shape or form played a large part in our lives, such as the Beach Boys, the Ramones, just a whole other classic bands, that not only do we need to pay homage to them, but we also kind of need to go back to our roots a little bit. And as you're experiencing this album overall, it really feels as though U2 is trying to go back to their roots, almost like from the Boy War era. I mean, the first 3 U2 albums that had came out, it just, the vibe you get from it. But at the same time, you get that vibe, right? Lyrically, some of the best songwriting you'll ever come across if you're a U2 fan. This album, best lyric writing that there is to come from Bono and Edge, which, by the way, it looks like they're taking full credits for producing this album. Is just their 2 names alone, as well as Danger Mouse. Danger Mouse, a little help from Flood, did a pretty good job in approaching this. Of course, many of us had wondered what exactly was going to be coming about with this album, as originally we had heard that will.i.am had stepped in and he was trying to help them out. I mean, so many producers had stepped in to try to lay down their mark on what should be the sound for U2's album, but when it was all said and done, it pretty much came right down to Bono, Edge, Danger Mouse, Flood, a little bit of help from Ryan Tedder as far as production goes. But a Song for Someone, definitely one of the most standout tracks in my mind. Iris is another one. This is one where Bono pretty much tackles the loss of his mother, who had passed away after collapsing at his grandfather's funeral when he was only 14 years of age. Emotional track right there. Very good stuff. Volcano, you kind of get the vibe as you're listening to Iris that maybe with Volcano, Bono, still a teenager, is experiencing all the emotional roller coaster of a ride that he was going through after the loss of his mother. Possibly let you all come to your own conclusions on that one. Roundabout by Raised by Wolves, somewhat of a political song with track 8, Cedarwood Road. Sleep Like a Baby Tonight. Sleep Like a Baby Tonight, by the way. For those of you, and I'm probably like one of only a small handful of people maybe that misses the type of Bono that we had got on Zoo Oprah. I might be pronouncing the album wrong. Zoo Ropa. I'm always pronouncing that damn album wrong during the years, but Lemon. I love Lemon. I love Bono having that falsetto voice that he has on that track. And those of you that missed that hardcore falsetto Bono, you're going to be able to find that on that track, Sleep Like a Baby Tonight. He teases it very good. You get enough of that falsetto fix that just kind of has you saying to yourself, Bono can still go there. He can still go there if he wants to. I really had enjoyed that. Very nice, soothing song right there. Rounding out the album, we have This Is Where You Can Reach Me. Kind of a little bit inspired by The Clash. You'll kind of hear a little bit of it as you're listening to that. The Troubles. Honestly, I thought out of the 11 tracks that was on this album, I actually could have done with The Troubles. And I don't know if you all would agree with me on that, but also I've just kind of gotten this vibe over the years with the past several albums that U2 has put out. It seems like they've been trying to give you this epic send-off almost with the very last track, and it just kind of seems like that streak was broken with track 11, The Troubles. I just really could have gone without that. To me, that was probably the weakest single on this entire album. All the other tracks, I honestly did not have a problem with. Some people have pointed out that with regards to this album, it kind of feels as though U2 did not have a sense of a direction. Like they knew what they wanted to do concept-wise, and they did execute it very well, but just the musical journey that you experience as you're listening to this album, some people may feel that U2 lyrically didn't do a very good job in, okay, here's the starting point, which is basically, hey, here we are, we're kids in Dublin, this is what we're coming across for like the very first time, this is what's happening at our scene as we're coming up, and then right down to the very end with the last track. A lot of people feel that the journey throughout the 11 tracks, it gets a little bit lost. I say on the contrary, I think the journey that U2 goes through on each track is a hell of a story. I'm able to stay with it pretty much from beginning to end, and not to mention, you got to keep saying to yourself, this isn't really a concept album. They've already said that this isn't a concept album, but at the same time, they are talking about experiences that they've had in their lives, but I thought they did a really good job in handling it. Now, is this album better than No Line on the Horizon? Yes, hell yes. Yes. Is it better than All That You Can't Leave Behind? No. Is it better than How to Dismantle an Atomic Bomb? No. But if you're a fan of U2's first handful of albums, Boy, War, October, this complements those three albums very well, I think. It complements them very well. This is an album I feel has high replay value. You will keep going back to. It's a very unique sound. Those of you that's looking for Invisible or Ordinary Love to maybe be B-sides on this, unfortunately, the way it's looking right now, that's not going to happen, although anything is possible because this album is going to be released everywhere coming in mid-October. But for right now, if you have iTunes, you get this for free. And it's kind of cool the way the marketing strategy had came about with this. I mean, earlier this year, we already saw Beyonce, who quietly had released her new album exclusively through iTunes. They worked out a deal where iTunes was basically, they were given first strike. Everybody else had got it, like, I believe, a week later or something to that effect. And it was just one of those things where quietly you just went into the iTunes store. Boom, you see a banner telling you Beyonce has a new album out, and you got a bunch of music videos to complement all the tracks that you can see. You know, it's really coming off as though the future of the music industry is going to play a large part with iTunes and other music online formats / providers. It kind of comes off as if now the artists are kind of realizing, at least those really good established artists like U2, like Beyonce, they're really realizing that, you know what, there's a lot of people that have iTunes. We can definitely reach a massive amount of a fan base through iTunes, through the right type of marketing. And honestly, I think U2 might have been a little bit inspired, and there's nothing wrong with that, all right? I think they might have been a little bit inspired by the great success that Beyonce had, that the marketing strategy that they used, which was to premiere the release of this new album through the iTunes Summit, conference, if you will, where they had announced a few cool things that's going to be happening as far as the iPhone 6 and their version of a new tablet Surface or whatever. And that's pretty much where it all had came about. I thought it was a brilliant marketing strategy. I know we have some people that feel as though U2, they hoard themselves out by offering this album for free on iTunes, and I think that's just silly. Honestly, if you're a real U2 fan, you need to be saying to yourselves, number one, you know at some point U2 had got paid for putting this album together and making it all work with Apple. And sure enough, Bono had actually wrote a very lengthy letter explaining the release of Songs of Innocence and the album Songs of Innocence, and saying that, look, we did get paid for this album, but at the same time, we still wanted to do whatever we could to get the album out there to you all as soon as possible. Not to mention that it's the 10th anniversary of when U2 had first hooked up with Apple. So I think we just have more people that may be a little bit upset at the fact that they aren't going to be able to get a hold of this album like the people on iTunes are off the break, that they have to wait. But I mean, I grew up in a time in the 80s going into the 90s, late 90s, where if people were talking about a really cool album, you didn't have access to that album yet because you didn't have the money. There was always that one friend that you had. Come on now. Let's be for real. There was always that one friend you had growing up. If you were a kid in the 80s to now, you had that one friend who always hooked you up with whatever album you were trying to get because they had pretty much the same taste in music that you had. If you were pretty much far out there, 9 times out of 10, they matched you. All you had to do was go to that friend and say, hey man, I'm trying to get a hold of, I'll hook you up tomorrow. Just give me $5 or I'll loan it to you. Do what you got to do. Hook me up when when I see you next week or whatever. And that was the end of it. So, I mean, I think people just are overreacting a little bit with regards to that. I think, honestly, for all the amount of money that a lot of us put out on iTunes, Apple, and all that, honestly, I think it's a really cool gesture that Apple did. Lord knows, I've been using iTunes for many years now, and whatever type of music I'm not able to find through iTunes, I definitely support sites like CD Baby and Amazon. SoundCloud starting to become the new norm for independent artists, up and coming artists who's really trying to get their music out there to everybody. And honestly, I think this is a really nice gesture. that they did. And quite honestly, U2, as well as Beyonce, they have really set the tone for how music marketing should be happening. I mean, I really would not be surprised if we saw bands like Rolling Stones, if they ever decide they want to get together, put out a new album, or Metallica, Garth Brooks for that matter. I know he's getting ready to do something with a new release coming in a couple of weeks, but I'm quite sure you got everybody paying attention to this, and they're probably going to be trying to work out their own marketing strategy with Apple/iTunes. One thing I think that's pretty cool also that Bono had mentioned is that there is going to be a follow-up to this album. It's going to be called Songs of Experience. He's hoping that the turnaround for this will be happening very soon rather than later, as he knows that a lot of fans were waiting for the Songs of Ascent album. So hopefully we won't have to wait that long again. You know, U2, they have been doing a really good job in putting their name out there for the past couple of years, because they were involved with Spider-Man, the Broadway little musical play and all that. We also saw them contribute to 2013's Ordinary Love soundtrack, of which the song Ordinary Love, it had won a Golden Globe Award. It was also nominated for an Academy Award. So we saw them build up some really great momentum. And that would be followed up in 2014 as right around Super Bowl time. You guys remember we saw the release of Invisible, and that was something that they had worked out through Bank of America, where the song was available for free for, if I'm not mistaken, like 24 hours or something to that effect. And basically every single time that song was downloaded, Bank of America would donate $1 to Project Red, which was co-founded by Bono to try to help stop AIDS. So, you know, that seemed to just work pretty well for U2. It got them in that limelight. And, you know, originally a lot of us were expecting this new album to drop sometime next year. But as their PR representative had said just a couple of weeks ago, they said, the goal has always been to have the album be released sometime this year, sooner rather than later. And they kept their word as far as I'm concerned. And I think it's a really great masterpiece. It's definitely one that gives you a nice throwback type of feel, especially if you grew up on the Beach Boys, the Ramones, the Clash. This is definitely something that you'll be bobbing your head to. There's definitely going to be those key tracks that you're going to find yourself going back to a lot. But just to recap again now, this is not as good as How to Dismantle an Atomic Bomb or All That You Can't Leave Behind, but it is definitely better than their last album, which was 2008's No Line on the Horizon. I will definitely admit that. What did you guys think about this album? I'm very curious. If you have it, you checked it out, definitely let me know. If you have iTunes and you're trying to figure out how you can go about getting this album, you already have it. If you have iCloud and all that, as soon as you open up your iTunes, you'll see the album right there. It'll be ready for you to download. You'll see the little cloud button. That's the beautiful part about the way they have this album set up. People that are usually into rap, or maybe they're in the jazz or whatever respected genre, you just open up your iTunes library and mysteriously the album is just right there. So it's like, hey, if you're curious, you heard a lot about U2 over the years, you can check it out and go at your own leisure. If you end up not liking it, you don't have anything to lose because it's free. And by the way, we definitely got to make sure we give U2 a mad shout out and congratulate them, because in just like 24 hours since the album was released, it's been downloaded over 200,000 times. Currently, it is available in over 119 countries, assuming that you have iTunes. So they're off to a very damn good start right now. Post those comments down below. Let me know what you had thought about this new U2 album. Let me know what you thought about our overall review for it. If you felt we did it justice, as we always try to go in depth on our album reviews over here. We don't try to do like some people and only talk about it for 1 minute and expect you to subscribe to us. That's just cock teasing, let's be honest. So we really hope you appreciate the way that we handled this here. And if there's a really cool album you'd like for us to check out, to possibly review, you can definitely sound off, post your comments down below, and if it's on point, if I'm messing with it like that, we'll definitely do a future review. Meantime, make sure you share this a number of ways. You can Google+, Facebook, retweet it. One of the many ways you can spread a good word about our content. Make sure you also give this a thumbs up. If it's your first time checking us out, I'd love to have you subscribe to us because we do a little bit of something for everybody. We got some really cool album reviews like what you're checking out now. We also do a little bit of breaking news. If you're a wrestling fan, we even cover a little bit of that. So we got a little bit of something for everybody. So do subscribe. Check out our content as we're always doing some really great stuff here for you guys on a weekly basis. That's going to do it, boys and girls. I'm wishing all y'all to be safe. Be kind to one another. We will see you all next go round. Everybody, do take care.